Hello, welcome. We're here. We're alive and hanging out and all that fun
Hi
stuff.
everybody, back
How
for
y'all
another
doing?
stream.
Hmm.
Today we talk about the smart guys, because we're
Yeah,
also smart.
we are the smartest. SMERT. Uh,
Yes, the smart characters in tabletop RPGs. The intellectuals, those with high intelligence, the book smart kind of guys, right?
right.
Those fellows and
Yeah.
gals.
So, I think we go ahead and get started on this conversation. I don't remember the exact flow that we did last time, but I know the sort of questions that I normally would ask. So I guess we'll just go ahead with the definition of a smart character. Or actually, we'll shake things up and go first to the question of: do you have a character in some other media besides tabletop that you kind of like frame as what you think is the best instance of a smart character? So
The best in the sense that it's an excellent depiction
right.
or in the sense that I like that character a lot.
It
I
just
mean,
kind of like I think the best in the like instance of what it is. Uh Not just
I
liking it.
I guess one rather good example is Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. Yeah. I mean, if he's a likable character or not, I think that's a different discussion. But he's definitely the smart guy. He's also an asshole.
Right.
Definitely did not invest into charisma.
Right.
But he solves all his problems with his brain, inventing gadgets to get out of it, or outsmarting his enemies, and so on.
That's
I have other examples, but go ahead if anybody else has somebody else.
well, I just want to say like the one thing that I think detracts from him as like a smart character for me, and only in the sense that the only thing I would say about that character, just kind of like starting this sort of conversation off, is just like while he is smart, he is always the smartest man in the room, sort of thing. He also isn't really good at like showcasing why he's smart. He's just portrayed as smart, and that to me
Yeah.
kind of weakens the I'm smart as much as just I'm just luckily always right.
I agree with you with that. He was just like the first that popped up into my mind.
No,
It's also
that's
why I
perfectly
asked
fine.
that weird question of being a good character and so on. I
Right,
mean, I
right,
do enjoy Rick and Morty, but
right,
but I'm not one of those guys who says you need a high IQ to enjoy this show.
right.
Type, right?
That's not going to get into that conversation. What about
Yeah.
you, Eternal? Do you have a character in your head that you're thinking of?
Honestly, Senku from Doctor Stone.
Okay.
It is probably the only
Mm.
scientific anime, but like that character literally has the impossible IQ. They're like, oh yeah, he's got like 120,000 IQ because this guy like counted every second for 3,000
Yeah.
years while everybody else screwed off
Right.
and forgot life. This guy remembers every recipe of everything you can make, and from the Stone Age goes, we need to make a vaccine, so we need to do these 50 things and get this, and we'll have to build this before we can get that. And it's like the overarching planning and knowledge
Yeah.
and skills this one character had,
Mm-hmm.
but mainly how it emphasized all you had to do was have moderate levels of strength to far exceed him in any strength-based
Right.
thing. Like he emphasized pointing out the place of his own character compared to others.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
what I especially like about that anime is his best friend, who is just a strong, good-hearted idiot, but he emphasizes that he needs his strength and that he's a valuable ally. And I really like that dynamic between the two. Not like
right.
again, Rick Sanchez, who is like, I'm the smartest. I don't need anybody. But I'm the smart boy. You're the strong boy. Together, we're the invincible duo.
Oh, dude. If you've seen far enough to where him and one other character that's like the big, strong bully guy gets stuck, there's like this heart-to-heart moment between them. Like, you can't live without me. I'm strong. I can live with this. I can't live without you either. And the guy's like, wait, what do you mean? And it was like the most heartfelt moment, because it's like, yes, the big strong dude, you were required, but me to tell you where to place these things so they don't explode, very required.
Goodness. So I want to get one of the probably also like one of the big ones out of the way for things, but I do have other characters that are popping in my head. First off, I do want to like point out Sherlock Holmes as a character, because that kind of shows the smart as an investigator sort of concept of, especially depending on if we're talking about like specific movies or books, depending on which version of Sherlock Holmes we're talking about. But no matter what, he always has some sort of like wise sidekick, while he himself is just super smart and perceptive. And kind of like...
I feel kind of stupid that he didn't instantly popped into my mind, because, yeah, he's the smart character.
I mean, I could... There's a couple others that are... I mean, even was created around the same time that we could kind of talk about. Like, I wouldn't say you should feel stupid for not thinking about him. Just like, I do want to point out that that is a common thing that a lot of people think of when they're thinking of a character that does the thinking. Would be more Sherlock Holmes. But I think...
Yeah, in that case, we can already, like, focus on two classical smart guy archetypes: the investigator and the techie / wizard.
Right, like there's the investigator, the like techie, as you said, or wizard or whatever, like the inventive side of things. Is there any other characters that maybe help spot something else that's interesting?
MacGyver, because like he was intelligent, but it was really the improv skills of his intelligence.
I mean, I want to like build off of that and kind of point at one of my favorite superheroes, Spider-Man, just because he's only seen, like, he's smart, but he is the smartest on crunch time, and he's actually pointed it out in comics of like, yeah, no, I'm not like smart. There's 30 seconds left on the test smart.
I mean, he's kind of cheating with the spider sense, because
I mean, it's part of his power set.
What?
I mean, it's part of his power set. I mean, is it cheating or is it like using your tools?
I mean, let's be honest. Some of those people are so smart that it is a superpower. There's no way any human can be this smart. Even if you like try to genetically engineer somebody to be this smart, just the biology would fail.
Right. I want to kind of like talk about that, but I want to talk about that when we talk about negative smart characters, because in comics there are so many great negative, like bad characters that are smart characters. And again, more of like they just don't really work in like showing off what a smart character could be because of whatever reason. But we'll go into that. Is there any other characters?
Man, I know there's one from Fairy Tale. I'm looking at my poster and I'm like, I can't remember it.
Right.
Fairy Tale the anime? Or?
Yeah, I think Fairy Tale the anime.
Fairy Tale the anime, yeah. Yeah, it's like I know there's a smart dude in there from somewhere. It's always a smart person in the anime. It's like Oh man, Shikamaru from Naruto. The
Ah,
Shadow.
Actually, I will say Shikamaru because he highlights another type of smart character, as in the strategist.
yes, yeah, the tactician. Forgot about that one, but yeah, I used to really like Shikamaru, but now that I rewatched Naruto, he's very sexist, and something you don't pick up as much when you're a teenager and watching it. Just like,
Right.
oh yeah, he doesn't like women. Now when you rewatch how he talks about women, so
Yeah.
no, dude, come on. But let's be honest, that's kind of a general problem with Naruto. That the the writer can't write women there.
Right.
But okay, we are drifting off.
So there is another character I want to bring up because it kind of ties into our last topic as well, because I think the character is actually talked about a little bit because he's also a social character. But it's the main character of the Psych TV show. I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah.
Because his entire shtick, like, he's tricking people in that he's psychic, but actually, he's just really good at investigative work like Sherlock Holmes. He has a photographic memory and some of those sort of traits where it's just like, yeah, no, he's just able to really notice stuff. That kind of sums it up. And of course, make the logical leaps to be correct. But as we're kind of slowing down on choosing positive or smart characters, I think we can kind of switch gears into some of the more negative ones so that we can kind of talk about the thing that I wanted to talk about when we started to talk about the comic book ones. I specifically had chosen Spider-Man as a positive one because a lot of ones who are smarter than Spider-Man are bad. Like, they're written in a very weird way. I'm trying to want to, like, how do I say it? Like
Like when you read them, you think that's not how real life smart people act.
Right.
You mean that, or?
Well, kind of like that. Like, not just like real life, but like if you had super smartness, right? Some of the first things you would try to tackle would be things like, oh, I don't know, getting rid of cancer. But yet cancer is actually still there in the comic, even though we know that they came up with solutions to get rid of them in other alternate, like, comics things. So it's like, some of them are just like, nah, it's not worth it. It's like, really? You're over there trying to, like, come up with how to, like, I don't know, clone yourself. When in reality, there are people who has, like, all these, like, bad things. Like, honestly, if we're talking about, like, having smarts and a moral compass, or even just smarts, but, like, using it in, like, in interesting ways, like, one of the best ones is actually a villain. Doctor Doom is the goodest bad guy that there has ever been in comics, and it is silly.
Doctor Doom is awesome.
He's like, yeah, no, I might be, like, evil sometimes, but, like, for the most part, I just want my people to succeed because, like, we've been shit on.
One caveat.
Every time he shows up, I'm just thinking, you sure we don't want to let him win? Are we sure this is the right thing to do to stop him?
Yeah, no. One interesting caveat about Doctor Doom, he's one of the best out there. He has this device that lets him see into the future. Every universe where he has not conquered the world is destroyed.
Right.
He is the villain because he is the hero.
Right.
But it is so stupid of a way to handle it.
Right.
I will say that. He is my favorite villain, though.
Right. And I mean, arguably, we could say that it also depends on which version, because, like, that's the hardest thing when it comes to comics, is because what is canon is super hard to truly nail down, because some writers have a different canon, and like, it changes from issue to issue at times. Retcons are us.
Yeah, Also, with questions like, who would win, Goku versus Superman? What Superman? There's so many versions. It highly depends on which Superman you pick, how the fight will end.
Right. But yeah, no. That's my only like caveat is like for a lot of the smart ones in like again we was talking about like smart characters that are just good narratively of just going, yeah, these are smart characters, but like at the same time I do want to like stress that some or a majority of the actual like smart characters in comics are written in a very poor way, especially when they're supposed to be good guys. I'm not going to get too deep into that discussion because it doesn't really help us any, but that's all I wanted to say.
No, but you make me think of Mr. Fantastic, the world,
right?
the universe's most intelligent person that never figures out how to solve things until the end.
I mean, or the fact that Mr. Fantastic is actually a horrible, horrible individual with everything he's ever done.
Yeah.
But we'll not touch that.
Yeah, and I'm not glorifying him because he figured out a wooden gun can defeat Magneto. Like, no.
Right.
No, that's supposed to be a famous moment in the comic. But I'm like,
a wooden gun.
Right. You could have done it with a
rock. I mean, a bow and arrow with the stone tip would have worked, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
A wooden gun.
It's worse. They just made Magneto think his powers don't.
Right.
Like, that was the whole deal. Magneto's like, oh, my powers don't work no more. How did you do this to me? And it's like, what happens when you tell this fool it was a wooden gun?
Right.
Or he realizes his powers work again. Like, what are you going to do? This was not a smart solution.
No, it was temporary.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like there's other character concepts and other, like, things we can kind of bring in, but I do think that it's worthwhile to go into the next bit of topic unless you guys have other negative like intellect but like meh sort of characters that just don't hit the mark.
I have one that's probably controversial because depending on, again, the comics, depends on which version you're looking at.
Oh man, another comic one.
But
let's go.
The character is supposed to be highly intelligent. It's just really hard to tell. And I say that's the bad writing. But Joker's supposed to be almost on par with Batman's intelligence, but he's just chaotic.
Right.
Which is why Batman can understand him and figure him out. But where do you see the intelligence besides, oh, he came up with this plan in like 5 minutes and all of a sudden it affects the whole town? Like, you can see it, but you got to think about it. It doesn't display it.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of the chess master's dilemma in that sort of thing of like, yeah, no, he's really good at just moving pieces and getting things to happen. But unless you're actually completely aware as, like, the reader or the person, you may not notice that he's the one who kind of did that. Alternatively, I don't know if I feel right saying this, but I kind of, like, want to compare that to, like, Star Wars for a second. Because the Emperor also does chess master level plays, but we gotta know what he's doing, right? And kind of see the play. So the question is it because it's supposed to be a chaotic chessboard because it's the Joker, or is it because they can't find a good way to showcase what he's doing for them?
No. But yeah, I didn't think of the Emperor until you brought that up. Like, telling the stormtroopers the myth so they give away the rebel base. Like that was it caused the meme of the stormtroopers bad aiming though. Like that one scene. But that was the Emperor. As much as no one actually really connects that back to, that was the Emperor. It's like, well, yeah, the orders came from above, so
right.
Technical Emperor is the one that did it.
Hashtag.
Yeah,
What in
right.
the world is
So
Emperor doing?
basically, we got the techie, the investigator, the tactician, and the master manipulator. No, wait, what's the
Well, I said chess
I had the
master.
mastermind. The mastermind.
Mastermind.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah,
And see,
masterminds usually. Yeah.
no, I was gonna say like, I kind of wanted to see if we can define better the mastermind versus the tactician, because I feel like they are very close to one another. But
Well, the tactician is more combat focused. Where do I put my troops? How do I find the weakness of my enemies? While the mastermind is more about social, political manipulation, setting everything right so that he wins without ever a bullet being shot.
Okay.
And
That's
Or
really
not, at least not him shooting the bullets, just
Right.
some idiot he convinced to do it.
Mastermind characters typically also always have like some deep level of psychology and sociology understanding.
Right.
Typically, the trait of mentalist can be applied to a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, there's overlap between the four types of smart characters that you found, right? Some can be both at the same time.
Right, and I think that that's still strong. I just wanted to clearly define the difference for at least those two, just because anyone watching this now or later would benefit from knowing what the difference is. That being said, I think 4 is a good number, and I think I do feel like there might be other cases that we could bring up, but they might be more niche or more specific, right? Things like, characters who's smart, but only about a certain topic or things like that, right? Like maybe they are, they're just kind of, I don't know how to word that actually, as I think about it. Like I was kind of imagining like someone who's like really into animals, and so like their whole shtick is knowing stuff about animals and then effectively using those animals to do stuff, is kind of like a super niche variation on these.
I mean, I guess it's a subtype of the mastermind, isn't it?
Right. That's what I was.
Or depending if it's
right.
Yeah.
Alternatively,
a super specific one.
Yeah.
Who are you even? I can't even think of a character who fits that.
There's probably an anime out there.
Like just super intelligent in a specific topic
that can use like the example I used was for animals and using animals in that sort of way.
They're kind of a warrior, but why can I not remember this 80s movie right now?
Beastmaster or
picture Conan almost with blonde hair, but he's got a falcon. He's got two little I cannot remember, ferrets and one other creature.
I think he's just called the Beastmaster. Yeah, I think it's just called the Beastmaster, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, so
I haven't seen enough 80s movies.
If you take away the combat, that would fit what I was kind of describing. Like that's a super niche one. It exists. It can exist. But I do think that we should, especially now that we got an example, Beastmaster clearly does really good for that. I really like that.
I don't know. At least I connect Beastmaster less with intelligence and more with intuition, understanding the animal, being able to communicate with them, more of a down to earth connection with nature versus, for example, the biologist who understands the scientific processes of the animal.
That's why I kind of wanted to kind of like I changed the name of this to smart characters, not just intelligent characters, because like you're right on that, but like in D&D terms, what stats would that matter, right? Like in the Dragon game, they would still well, for the Beastmaster specifically, he can fight, so he probably has a good strength and dex and con, but it is more of an intelligence or wisdom or both in that sort of sense. Maybe charisma. Well, okay. Beastmaster is a bad example of what exact attributes are high, because I feel like in that particular instance, all of his stats are high. But that's
I mean, in this sense, we have to add, differentiate maybe intelligence versus wisdom / instinct, or however you
right.
want to mention it. At least when I went into this discussion, I kind of put the instinct / wisdom character in a separate category. Street smarts versus book smarts.
Really? Well, I was thinking of just smarts in general. Like, obviously, wise characters should exist. I don't know if there's much different, like, there might be some different ways they go about it, but honestly, instinct or intelligence, the character arcs, the character concepts follow the same sort of hum and drum. Like, okay, so again, we talked about social characters last time, right? But social is more than just charisma, especially if we get into more social, like, games that have social things. They have more attributes than just charisma. They may have things like presence, but we didn't spend time on that sort of discussion. Maybe that's worthwhile, is to talk about what sort of attributes that these characters could have, right? At least for me, that's the way I was thinking about this, was because this way it would allow us to have a little broader definitions when we go into things.
Maybe this helps. We took a lot of thought with what we were going to term the different stats in our system, and we didn't like just the intelligence, wisdom kind of setup that the Dragon game had. So yes, we have intelligence and wisdom, but we used wit. Wit we define as any of your quick, rapid made decisions, like your Spider-Man kind of thing you were bringing up earlier. Your intelligence is your ability to interpret and intake information, but wisdom is a representation of what you have already learned, and like that. So for our knowledge skills, they're wisdom. For intelligence and wit, it splits a lot of different things. But that way we kind of put into 3 different sectors the types of intelligence in our game.
Right. I mean, this is obviously kind of like a meta part of the discussion of like, what are we even talking about? But I think that's still useful.
I think maybe if we go into real life psychology, at least the difference of how I see it is like your subconscious versus conscience, right? Conscience, your ability to solve problems with that is more intelligence, while your subconscious is more instinct. At least that's how I put up. Like, in my system doesn't have wisdom; it has instinct.
Right.
Because
yeah, I can see that. I guess for me, it makes sense the way that I was kind of defining it, just because in the systems that I've worked on, besides obviously Dragon Game, the big difference between the 2 stats of the field, so in this one, it would be the mental field, right? Is the difference between, like, obviously what you know, but it's all like also how you know it. And because that's always my definition between the 2 difference of the stats. There's always, like, in every field, there's what I call the power stat and a prowess stat. The power stat would be, for the mental stuff, is the intelligence, because it's what you know, like how much you know, where the prowess would be more of like the wisdom. But it's the same sort of coin, because like if you're playing, I think looking at a lot of the characters that we talked to are good examples. I would say that would have both a high intelligence and a high wisdom, right? Because if you're playing one of these mental characters, you kind of have to work off of both of those assumptions. Now, maybe wisdom is higher for them, right? Because that is more useful for what they do. Like, again, I'm going to talk about the main character of Psyche, I would actually say that he has a much higher wisdom than his intelligence, right? But he's still an investigator, and he's still a smart character, right? He's shown to be a smart character a majority of the time. So that's where I kind of like what was going with it anyways. And where my thought process was. But and in either case, that is a good thing about the definition. So I guess we kind of slowly dipped into the third and like the third question of what is the definition of a smart character for this stream. Since we went from examples to now. And so, I mean, going from that, what do you all say? Is there anything else we should probably specify with that?
Like, I don't know if it's just my game or if it's something that's more predominant in other people's minds, but we have a specific knowledge skill section. Mm-hmm. And so we might have first aid as the skill, but then you have a medical knowledge. Mm-hmm. Showing that just because you can use said tool or just because you know how you would fix it doesn't mean you have the knowledge and the tool skills and the knowledge of how to utilize them. So we kind of separated that a little bit as well. But I think adding wit in kind of made a difference for us because it was the one that you're like, what do you do with these things that would be wit related, like improvising? That we went back and forth over intelligence and wisdom and just adding that other sector. So with tools being like tool knowledge or skills being a knowledge in itself like that, it added a whole nother section that allowed us to kind of distribute and kind of put things in nice, clean little boxes on where they were meant to go. Mm-hmm. So definitionally, I feel like there's a difference between I know how to cut wood and I know how to use this really futuristic saw. One's a tool skill, one's knowledge of carpentry.
Right.
So I think we're kind of moving in circles. So I suggest instead of trying to focus, okay, is a smart guy also a wisdom guy or instinct guy or whatever, that we focus on the 4 smart type archetypes that we set up and talk about those and how to implement them in tabletop RPGs, how are they implemented in other systems, what works, what doesn't work, and how we implemented it in our systems.
Sure. I mean, there is a definition here that I would like to nail down, because what we classify as a good for the term smart characters or intellect characters or whatever, that kind of dictates the sort of responses that I would say for this sort of thing. Because, I mean, yeah. But I guess maybe you're right that we're not really adding any more to this conversation, so moving forward is fine. There is a difference.
We agree to disagree.
And we can always just bring this back up if we don't have enough time. So going forward, then let's talk about actual smart characters in tabletop. And
my suggestion would be that we go one of the 4 types of smart character after the other, and instead of trying to mix it. What do you say?
I don't know, like, mostly because, like, I want to, like, while those are really useful, I don't know if I could think of each one as we was going through. So Maybe if you put them in the stream chat so that I could see them.
Okay, I'll write them down. First, we've got the techie.
Right.
It might not be written correctly. I'm just going to write them down. So the techie, the investigator,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna grab a drink and be right back.
Mastermind, and a tactician. Tactician. That's wrong. Whatever.
It's all good.
Correcting everything. Yeah. I would say the techie is the easiest one. So, plus it was the first one we thought of. So I say we should start with that.
Yeah.
Because I think the techie is at least one version of the techie is easy to implement.
Mm-hmm.
The one who plays like a wizard, basically just give him abilities to solve problems. The utility caster or technology utility user.
Right. So yeah, because I think we will also have different answers on what these kind of mean for us, but especially within our terms of systems or things that we've seen. So we'll go ahead and get started on our systems. So Blaze, do you want to get started on techie? How do you handle techies in your system?
Okay, then we jumped straight to that. I was talking about generally how it's implemented in tabletop RPGs.
Yeah,
but
well,
fine.
I mean,
I'm not going to say no. Talking,
I'm
not going to say no. If you ask me to talk about my system, I'm going to talk about my system.
I could see a benefit in both ways because, like, I don't want to spend too much time on each of us talking about our systems because I do want to give some light to the other systems. So I thought maybe if we do that first, we can then have enough time for the other ones as well. So,
all right. So it depends on which aspect of the techie you focus on. If you focus on more of a problem solver in the sense I've got the gadget just to solve this situation, be it creating a portal so you get from one place to another, or I've got a gadget that can burn through this door so we can get through and so on.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus on that part, in my systems we have a lot of utility abilities which you can flavor either as supernatural magical things or gadgets that you got with yourself. So that's the main way I represent that kind of character. It's there are different sub archetypes that do that. Thinker, for example, is very efficient at using his utility abilities, making them cheaper. He can, or even free if he takes his time with the problem and so on. Then there's a problem solver who just gives you a ton of utility abilities. Basically, I got a solution for any kind of problem. I may not be able to apply it as often as the thinker, but I've got you covered. Or there's also the Tinkerer, which is crafting focus. He crafts utility items. But then again, this is less about how the mechanical difference between crafting items and using abilities. But in that sense, they kind of still are utility ability users. Then, of course, there's the more combat-oriented techie, right? Iron Man, I've built this superpower tech armor, and I'm going to kick your ass with it. That can be basically represented with any sort of sub-archetype that focuses on combat / abilities. Depending on what kind of offensive technology you want to do. Maybe you have just a very good weapon that you upgraded. Well, most weapon users function maybe with a bit of investing into crafting skills so that you can actually upgrade them very efficiently, having the most high-tech weapon on the battlefield and so on. But since the power source of your abilities are rather flexible in my system, you can basically build a battle techie and represent them with almost any combat-focused sub-archetype. So, EternalGM, you want to talk about how you implement your techie?
Beyond the basic fact that all classes are broken into our 4 groupings, where technician is one of them, All of our classes specifically are giving those features and abilities that allow you to do that smart character stuff. But with our tool separation and knowledge skill separation, they're a little more heavy on that, depending on if they're more the artisan or academic kind of style techie. So really, we leave it up to your tool allocation, your training levels, and the actual direction you're going with your class. Because you could pick one of these type of art types like the detective or investigator, and now you have the subclass that deems it into a more specific. But really, it all comes down to just your tools and skills with this. We don't focus as much on the abilities. Like, we've given stuff like distraction and scavenge to all technicians because it fits. They're the characters in the movie that goes, "Hi, I'm a target." But they're also the ones that go, "Hey, I got a tool for that." So we really worked on making them that way. Like, this has caused us to create a field medic, but like I said, without implementing the knowledge skills and specific tools, it's just got some abilities, and any system can do that. I feel that our way of handling technicians is kind of simple, but it's smooth, it's simple, coordinates, and it just functions. So far from a field medic to a rogue, so we just didn't try and complicate it any, or maybe we already did with the character profile and that's why it works. So not really sure. Our technicians typically deal with more of the character profile than any other grouping, simply because most of them are focused on either their weapons or their spells or their psionic techniques. They're all over the place.
So, Technomancer Kyle, how do you solve your techies and your a cake?
So I feel like one of the things that I should have, okay, so obviously I talked about some of the primary attributes that's useful to these smart characters. Thus, techies need to be intelligent. They need to have the wisdom. They need to have like those in over archaic. But there is one group of actions that a techspert should do or should have. And that is, or at least should know, especially if they are techie as in making items, if they are the inventive sort of techie. I spent a lot of time making the rule set allow you to make your own flair and make your own items. And not just a sort of like, it's these base items with some stuff, but there's actually traits, things that you can apply to these to spend and be as creative as humanly possible in tabletop for your weapons or items that you make, so that it's you can make the perfect set for a character or whatnot, as well as giving things actions to allow one to reverse engineer things, as well as being able to repair items on the fly. But like there's just a lot of tech related special actions that those who are in that area may want to consider looking a lot into. Obviously, as a technomancer, there are also character specializations that are very much related to a lot of these, but like Techspert, where you could play like a technomancer, which fits that sort of magical concept of being a techspert, but also magic. And like that is
you referred.
Huh? What?
I was saying you referred to some cool stuff there. I can't get it out of my head. Like the guy that's in a non-magical world feigning he's got magic because he has freaking nanobots and like epic usage and knowledge of how to control them and make them look like stuff that's not normal. So that's a Shadowrun campaign right there. Sure, someone's done it.
I mean, you could have it in Nova Archaic because that's
not
actually
Shadowrun.
within.
It would be.
Reminds me of a story that I heard about where basically all the characters were in a magic school, but there was one guy. He pretended to be an Eldritch Knight, but he could not cast magic like he really wanted to. But everything he did was fake, and even the other players did not do. And he used sleight of hand to like throw grenades and be like fireball.
That sounds so rad, though. Oh god, that would be so cool.
And the final was awesome because
like anime.
Yeah.
Right?
And the final was so awesome because the big bad evil guy had a spell prepared that basically crippled any magic users, and the whole party was like, "Oh my god, we can't do anything!" And the Eldritch Knight just like went up to him and said, "What's going on? Why can't you move?" "I don't use magic."
Oh shoot, that sounds amazing.
Oh.
It wasn't sorry.
No,
hi,
that's fine.
Timbo the Wizard, by the way.
Hey, Timbo. So I do.
You did remind me of a cool moment.
Go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
I just want to say
what? Real quick.
Okay. I'll let you.
Sorry. The Wizards animation thing, you just reminded me at the very end where the bad guy's like, "You can't do anything. I've overpowered you." He's like, "You should have stayed with mom longer." Pulls a gun out and shoots him.
Right?
It's like he's against technology the whole time.
Well, and that reminds me of, again, Star Wars, because Mandalorians parry this and shoots them with a bullet. Anyways, okay. No.
Parry this filthy casual.
Right. Oh, goodness. I do want to talk about Technomancer because it's one of my favorite specializations. Obviously, I spent a lot of time thinking about it. Just saying. But like one of my favorite things that the Technomancer does in Nova Archaic, one of its like main mechanics, and kind of showcases the main mechanic of a lot of the specializations and how they work, is on its shell doesn't seem super useful, but it's interesting. Because what it is, it just gives you, your character, the trait of tech. Which then means you can be affected by any spell that affects tech. And that in and of itself, or other effects, obviously. So you can essentially become a biological machine, and it's just so cool. It's one of my favorite things, and there is a couple of hidden tricks, if you know that, to do in the system with that. But yeah, we'll go ahead and move from this, unless there's one more things you want to say about Techie, and go into the investigator.
Well, no, except you made me think of one kind of...
No? You made me think of what? Go ahead.
You go ahead. There's a delay on me. You go ahead. I'll go after you.
So, investigator. Investigators in Ishanekon World Trappers are mostly skill-based. High perception skill, high analysis skill. And probably the best way to represent that kind of character is the expert, which just allows you to really pump up a few specific skills. The image of the expert is actually a detective looking at a crime scene. So, and there are a few talents which give you a bit. But to be honest, other than just pick the skills and pick talents that make you good at those skills, Ishanekon World Trapper doesn't have that much to really make the investigator.
Okay.
Not that I don't think it would still be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I guess you can still get specific abilities which help with investigation, like analyze object or speak with dead and so on.
Right.
But yeah.
There are powers that would be useful for them. It's just there's...
Mm-hmm.
Right. I get it. Obviously, I think that kind of fits for my answers for some of these as well, but we'll go on towards Eternal. What sort of things in your system do you have for Investigator?
So we split things up on some of the skills. Like, it's been long enough since I played the Dragon game. I'm going to be a little off on mentioning its specifics, but I remember like you could give a perception check or you could investigate, and pretty much you're done there.
Right.
Besides passive awareness, which really I've seen most people kind of ignore, where I've always used that as, at least in my game, you walk into the room, if I need a register on do y'all notice stuff outright walking in and just seeing, that's what that is. Your awareness check, that's our stat for it. That has to do more with you. Any of our stat checks are quick time events. So if like a gunshot just went off and you're trying to quickly discern who that did that, where the gunshot come from, that's an awareness check.
Right.
Once you have some details, that's where you are investigating. You're going deeper into those details. Like, hey, you notice that there's something wrong with that wall. So now you investigate it to figure out the specifics, maybe the switch or figure out if the knife was used left or right-handed. Right. Observation and insight are also two things that come into it. Insight is more for determining, did that person lie to you? Are they being honest? Do they really know what they're saying? Or do they just believe they do? Right. And then on observation, this one gets interesting. That Sherlock's skill to be able to look and grip someone's hand and realize, hey, those muscles are predominantly built in the way of a sword wielder. This guy's not being honest, saying he's not a hard worker or a fighter. So observation is more seeing hidden details physically, insights, hidden details socially, investigations, digging in deeper, and a perception check effectively is just looking into your area. So by dividing the different pieces up like that, we were able to not just have everything be these two checks and put other stuff that focuses on them, making the difference between types of investigating, the different levels of it, to where it's not just the same checks over and over. So that's kind of what we did to distinguish them and variate them in our system.
I get you.
Your turn, Kyle.
Yeah, sorry, you was standing out of frame, and so I was trying to like a frame for the thing, so I was trying to adjust you, and okay. Anyways,
No, I'm just want to stand a bit because have been sitting a lot today. Playing too much Remnant.
I totally understand. I was just trying to adjust because I could look over on my Discord screen and see your head, but your head was being cut off on the frame, and I was like, wait, what? Why is that being cut off? You should be able to be seen. So I just lowered the entire thing.
Yeah. Whatever. Like, just let's continue.
It's fine. It's fine. I just had to figure that out, but yeah. Investigator. Woo. So in Nova Archaic, there's a couple of different things. There is actually a big sub-mechanic for investigations. So I didn't really get into how the sub-mechanic for crafting works, and like mostly because but mostly because it actually also kind of ties into the investigation, especially when you're working on like cracking someone else's builds and stuff. But investigating has a sub-mechanic where you actually generate these things called notes, which is what they kind of say on the tin. They're notes about a certain topic, and you get a certain number of points that you can then spend those points to learn information. That's all the system kind of works, but it just sets it up. So when you're investigating a thing, you'll get notes that are specific for a topic, and then you can spend like 2 of those points to learn a trait, or 1 of those points, or whatever, depending on the suggested point expenditure and kind of like your agreed upon expenditure with you and the person.
Everything all right, Eternal?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For the most part, the only other thing I don't have any like interesting specializations for them for investigators, but I do have, I mean, like you kind of said, Blaze, like I have a lot of options, a lot of I actually have a lot of spells that make investigating, especially for investigating certain things, really interesting. And so I think I'm going to share one of them conceptually. I'm not going to get into it. I think we kind of talked about it on the show once before, but I could be wrong. And it was been a very early version of the topic, or early version of the show. So one of my favorite spells, one of the changes that I've made, is spells like Detect Magic. Right? Any of those perception-based gives buff sort of spells, so being able to see things. They no longer just tag in and change your your perception. Instead, it's now you choose a sense to modify, and you'll get information based off of the sense that you've modified based off of what it is. So if it's Detect Magic, you can then smell magic, right? Or you can touch magic. And this means that if you have or you're in a form, or you're just have like heightened senses that are not perception based, you can still get really good information from it, right? So if you have like super smelling, then you can actually gain almost as much information, if not more, based off of that. And I think that really helps a lot of investigators to kind of branch off and be a little weirder. And I like a little weirder builds. So.
I mean, if you count that sort of vision / sense manipulation or greater senses, then Ishanekon World Shapers also has quite the selection there. Supernatural vision, but also electromagnetic vision, smell vision, sound vision, seismic vision, atomic vision.
Nice. A lot of
and
vision.
A few more.
Right. I have a couple that I didn't bring in as well. Like, I actually have blood sense, which is literally just you can feel, like, you can detect using whatever perception you choose to know where there is some blood and more information about the blood. And that's really useful if you're playing a vampire. It's pretty much the only use case right now. But, like...
I guess the closest thing I have would be life vision, which allows you to sense the life force of other creatures.
Yeah.
But I guess technically it doesn't get triggered if blood is just lying around.
Right. It is one of those...
picturing a guy smelling blood right now.
Right? Just sharks.
Like, you went that way.
Got that shark sense. I smell blood in the air. Yeah. What? I mean,
but
yeah.
Should we continue with the mastermind?
Yeah, go ahead and go to the mastermind. The chess makers are.
Yeah, I mean, like the really big ones, I think are very hard to depict in mechanical form. And to be honest, I think that's more of a villain role, right? The puppet master behind the string, the big bad evil guy. But if you reduce the scale more to like manipulating a situation so that is goes just as you want. Of course, they are the charisma skills, deception, persuasion to get the person to do something to put them in the right spot. But there are also abilities if you want to be a bit more forceful, like light suggestion, where you make somebody believe a piece of information. Which, by the way, in my system, that does not have to be magic. You can't just be that good at convincing people.
These are not the droids you're looking for. Today's a Star Wars day.
Exactly, exactly that. That's not the droids you're looking for. That's what inspired.
It's just a Star Wars day for me, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Hey, Star Wars? Why not? Like, Star Wars was fine before Disney, but whatever. That's another discussion. Yes, or also, just charming the person and stuff. But I was thinking if maybe illusions also kind of fit in that.
Yeah, I could see
manipulating the situation. I would say it's like a sub type of the mastermind.
Right.
And of course, my system has quite a few illusions. From the simple illusion where you just make a sound or a static image up to when you get higher tiers illusion that you can just create and they exist for multiple hours and they act like real creatures. And even if you touch them and you just fell through, your brain is like explains it away. But yeah. So lower scale mastermind, there are a few abilities and mechanics that in Ishanekon World Chapters represent that, but quite frankly, I don't know how to really put a high-level mastermind. Maybe like high-level persuasion, but that's more on the players. Get into the politics, find the right people, set things in motions, and
it's
I don't think
very roleplay heavy. Right.
Yes. I would say that is a bigger part of the player smarts if you really want to push it to those heights.
I could see some of that, yeah.
So, EternalGM?
With ours, we added a lot more of the social skills than I guess you would regularly find. Like, we have manipulate, we have mentalism as well. We have a kind of persuasion styled one. We have the intimidation. We have a whole little selection of stuff. But the reason things like mentalism were added in is because like you were talking, it's very hard for a character that's a player to be like the overarching mastermind. And I thought about that. I wanted players to be able to have mentalism so that they could learn and do stuff interacting with a character on that level and actually have this person kind of come to their own decision of, man, it would be a good idea to step out my shop and do my stuff an hour late, which becomes the distraction you needed for the battle that you set up at that spot the next day. So like 1-2 step things, we've got it to where you can do it with using mentalism, manipulation, persuasion. But going beyond that, not as much. That style of character is going to be the masters of the social skills, insight, and what was the other one? Observation. Right. This will give them the ability to see what will work, learn about that character, and use that information in a psychological way to bend them to doing what they want without them knowing it ever happened.
Right, yeah.
I kind of designed my mastermind more like Moriarty than Sherlock kind of style thing.
Sure, I understand that. Yeah, I can see that. My wife just
I brought you lunch.
Oh, thanks. My wife brought me lunch. Cool.
Sandwich and chips. Yeah.
Sandwich and chips. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go into Nova Archaic and how I handle the mastermind real quick. So masterminds in Nova Archaic, like I kind of agree with some of the sentiment of like it's kind of like fits into player mastery. Like I can imagine if a person wanted to play a mastermind in Nova Archaic, they would want to have the social attributes higher. They want to have like a lot of good relationships with a lot of social like movers and stuff like that to be able to get people to move and do stuff. They would want to have some affiliations with some organizations like higher than being a grunt, because then they could actually move people and get them to do stuff. And I mean, even they themselves may make a organization or something, and I don't currently have a lot of the rules for that, but that is on my to finish list. Besides that, I only have one unique action that kind of fits into the mastermind thing. And it's a spell, and it's because it is literally the process if you want to change or modify someone else's dreams. It's literally modify dreams. Because with that, you would be able to manipulate them to do and see other things with that, especially with higher level castings of it. Or not higher level, but like higher skilled. There's a better terminology there. Of course, that also just kind of like depends on the player to realize that that's how you could use it, because it doesn't necessarily have to be with how it's written. Other than that, I don't currently have any other things that a lot of the things that I have probably fits into the other side of things of the tactician. So I think that's what I'm going to say is we just mosey right along to the tactician for our systems.
Yeah. For the tactician, same with the mastermind. It's more up to the player to fully realize the role. It's hard to put features in and show, oh, you're so brilliant, if the player just runs into combat and just starts hitting random enemies and such, right? So to really complete the image of the tactician, you kind of need the player and the features to work in tandem. But of course, I do have features to represent that idea. And I think we also have to think about two forms of the tactician. The tactician, who is the battlefield commander, who controls his armies and or allies and uses those as efficiently as possible. And the solo tactician, how do I take out the enemy? What weaknesses do they have, and how to exploit that? That would be Shikamaru, for example, is shown to do that. Or also, those famous Sherlock Holmes series from that specific movie, where I think the same guy who plays Iron Man. Sorry, I'm really bad with. First, I'm going to do this, then I compilate, and then boom, and then just repeats the exact same thing.
Yeah.
For the battlefield commander, I have specifically the leader is really built around representing that. Depending on which stats you invest in, I think the closest to the image of the tactician is if you use the intelligence-based leader, who increases the attack potency of their allies, kind of like strike them like this, strike there, and so on. But there's also the Paragon, who has an aura which can buff allies, which you can reflavor as them helping out. And there are abilities like ally attack, where you can order somebody to attack, allowing them to attack with their reaction, or ally ability, even allowing them to use an ability which usually does not use a reaction to be used in a reaction. And buffed versions where you can basically order everybody attack at the same time or use abilities at the same time. But the solo tactician, I guess there are a few things that help you really in the exploit the weaknesses. The analysis adept, for example, gives you an action for one action point where you can find out all the vulnerabilities in immunities and resistances of an enemy, so you know their weak spots, and then you can, as a player, take advantage of that. And there are lesser talents exploit the weakness, I think. I forgot the name. Basically, it decreases the damage you deal to enemies that are vulnerable to that specific damage type. So you can really play into taking advantage of the weaknesses of an enemy. Of course, there are more abstract ways to play that. Maybe if you go for a crit build and you roleplay crits as, he found the weakness and he took advantage of that and struck it exactly. Other ways are if you play into the kind of dirty fighter or the one who uses status effects and play into the role and weaken them so that either myself or my allies can take advantage of that. And even something that just building combos. Something like I use a dirty fighter and I forgot the name of the second lesser talent, so that I can grab and knock somebody prone with just one action point. Now they're pinned to the ground alone, and I just take my weapon and start bashing in, and they cannot move. All the attacks have advantage, all their attacks have disadvantage, and so on. So yeah, but other than the whole battlefield commander, you really need the player to take advantage of the combos, of the information you get through the analysis as a talent and so on, to really be the tactician. EternalGM?
So really that comes down to our leader class. Each of its subs would give it a different biome of where it's applying, but long story short, we use our process of heroic actions to be bolstered by the leader by cutting down the cost or making the difficulty easier for any combination or battlefield strategy moves. So if they are getting in a flanking position, they would have advantage on any dodges or anything involved with getting into position. They would have bonuses in applying that, as well as their combo moves, like the wizard puts fire on the sword right before the warrior attacks, is a combo move done with heroic dice. So that would be now cheaper, and they could take some of the cost even if they're not taking part. So they're able to add actual functionality and combo moves to it and bolster the regular strategy that's involved in the game, like our reaction and trigger system. Which, quick example is, if you walk in this room right now and kick the door in, I'm not going to wait for you to finish your turn before I move. I'm going to shift into that closet, grab a pipe, and wait for you to move towards the door and then hit you. This isn't like holding an action. I can do my whole turn and then respond during your turn within certain requirements. So the leader also helps bolster those type of actions.
Sure. Interesting. For Nova Archaic, for Tactician, I actually, there is a couple of things. One of the things that I want to kind of like point out is I do have a skill that's actually about tactics, and which kind of allows you, like, it's actually used to find weak points and stuff like that, but also kind of like give some help to the player who wants to play the tactician. So have high tactics would allow you to do some of that stuff. But there are actions that's been kind of said is like, if you're playing the tactician, a lot of your sort of like goals and builds is more of battlefield manipulation or buffing, debuffing. And so like for me and Novark, there's not many specializations that are tacticians, but there is kind of like ways to use your spells or actions if you're not a spellcaster or what have you to help others in that sort of way. Like that's where it gets kind of, I just don't have, I guess, many things for that. The only thing that's really popping in my head is a I do have like a team leader specialization, but it actually doesn't even do any of those. Like, it doesn't have any unique actions. Its main thing is there is a secondary attribute for teams. So this is only if you're playing like a game that where the players are actually within a team, not just like we all are kind of like under the same thing for one goal, but like we are trained to be a team sort of thing. There is a secondary attribute called Unity, Team Unity, where it's literally just it's derived from the lowest relationship within the team plus one, and that's what the number is. And then that is used to assist others. But the counter to that is the team leader that can actually increase that number. They have special actions to make that better. And that's kind of the team leader shtick. It allows people to assist each other better. I guess a way of putting that. So, anyways, that's all I really have for Tactician right now in Novark. So the next bit, unless there's anything we want to ask questions of each other or not, we can kind of go into talking about other tabletop systems we've seen that have any of these archetypes in interesting ways. We can kind of go through the list again. So first would be Techie. Do either of you have a system that might allow players to play techies very efficiently?
Only two, besides what I all of us here are trying to work on. I've only experienced like Shadowrun and Cyberpunk to really kind of handle the techies well.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Shadowrun does have really good item manipulation, I guess. Though I will say that I don't know if it fits the bill for the tech, like the techie in the sense of a magic user, because I don't know, the Shadowrun spells are very
that whole lore is weird. I stopped playing once I realized that the whole dragons and interviews and stuff. I went, oh god, this is weird, and I just couldn't feel it anymore. But no, I agree. Not that type of technician, but specifically the techie style. Like, you can play the hacker, the machinist, the robotics person, and it really feels like it. When, like, the moment you try and step out of something into, like, the social style of a tactician, man, White Wolf Publishing Games nailed that on the head.
Jumping to tactician.
Well. They were the biggest inspiration.
Yeah.
Like they were definitely the main inspiration for a social interaction system.
Sure. Before we go into that, Blaze, do you have a thing about techie?
I mean, there's also like the wizard's techie kind of character, and to be honest, I think if you look at the wizard from the Dragon game, it's not that bad. If you really focus into I solve the problems outside of combat. Yeah, they have a lot of spells, and with ritual casting, you usually can also use stuff out of your spell book. So,
yeah, I mean,
I think I wouldn't be go so far that only 2 games ever did the techie, but I mean, I know you went more into the technology kind of techie, but I think we shouldn't forget the wizard's techie or the magical techie, basically.
Well, I feel like it's a game design thing from my perspective. Technicians, marshals, mages, and mystics are 4 separate things, where that's more like my D12 system, and where it's not class based. You can do like, I want to learn sword, but I also want to pick up some psionic abilities, and hey, that techie stuff's cool. So you're going to put your points and everything towards that particular Lego build.
Right.
But that's why I keep leaving out the tech and the magical side. Also, I know y'all systems cover that in the tech side of things. So where I'm mainly focusing on the physical and intellectual, that gives y'all that freedom to add on to that and completely cover the magical side.
Sure. I mean, I do kind of want to get into, I think, I want to say for playing techie, both magical or technical, like technological, in any sort of aspect of a technical character where they're trying to make solutions outside of combat. My favorite system for that is actually normally generic systems, because I don't feel like I'm given enough tools to handle them in a lot of structured. And specifically, I'm going to throw the ups to Cortex for this, because if I'm going to make something to do, I have made a lot more interesting technical characters in Cortex games than I have in anything else. Well, I mean, I have played Shadowrun for the role. Like, I love Shadowrun's in-depthness for the actual technological stuff, except that sometimes their options are still limiting as well. Because, I mean, they only release so many books, and they don't really give you the tool set to modify things. That being said, when it comes to spellcasters, I like flexibility of magic. I like to be able to, like, especially if magic is supposed to be something that you can do on the fly, I like that. If you're supposed to have hard set spells, I still like to be able to manipulate how those spells may act, because sometimes I want to do a fireball, but I don't want as big as an area, right? I want to be able to have that sort of like, okay, give me some flexibility, right? This is a magic, and if I'm being told that magic is like a science or something, let me have it like a science. If I'm being told that it's more of an art, let me have it like an art. Both of those would allow some creative freedom. But that's just me. That's why I like more generic systems for that archetype in particular. The next one would be Investigator. Is there any systems that you guys kind of want to, or have seen that would kind of might help do investigation?
Call of Cthulhu.
You know, I will
investigator.
I will accept
Aren't the players literally called investigators there?
I think so. Yeah, because you're investigating the unknown, or occult or something. I don't know. That's a fair thing. I'm actually going to talk about a very, I don't know. I think it's still considered indie, though. I think they do have like a company name tied to it. It's just a very small company. And I only found it when I was doing physical, back in the day when I was doing professional GMing. Because someone was like, I want to play in a Scooby-Doo game. And I was like, okay, let me do some research. And I found a game called Inspectors. Its entire concept is essentially a Scooby-Doo-esque thing, but you're also mixing in some levels of they can run the company sort of thing. So there's some of that meta there of building an investigation company that goes around solving mysteries.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game. I would recommend people, if you have some money and want to throw them at it, to check out the game, do so. I had a lot of fun. I didn't run many sessions of it, but I did have fun when I ran it.
My problem isn't the money. My problem is the time.
Right. I understand that too.
I mean, now I'm probably organizing the Forever GM Stay Off, or however we're calling that project too, and
just
I don't have time for more games in my life. I would love to, but Yeah, I'm not making enough money from this. I mean, I'm not making any money from this. So.
Right. Yeah.
Whose fault is that? I mean, if I offer everything free, right?
I mean, one day you might get some donations and other things like.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but yeah.
What about
Just get down to the
what about you, Blaze?
Good investigator games.
Yeah.
Other, to be honest, I do not have enough experience with many tabletop RPGs.
That's fine.
Most of those that I played with are combat focused or just very weird or like more casual day-to-day life. I never really played much of an investigator game.
Yeah.
I mean, I did play version of Ishanekon World Shapers with the alternative rules. You can actually make a pretty decent investigator game out of that. Just use the only human alternative rules, and you're basically playing with normal humans with skills.
Nice.
And I did play actually Prime games with those, or Call of Cthulhu type games. But yeah, sorry, I don't have enough experience with investigator-focused tabletop RPGs, and those that I do usually are not as good at this. So, I mean, there's the investigator subclass in the Dragon game, but it really is not that great. So I don't have any positive examples.
That's fine.
Is there a Sherlock Holmes RPG?
So
probably.
You want to have one and maybe one additional person to kind of like go around. So it'd be there's probably a game for it, right? I just don't have anything in my head for it right now, but I would be very surprised if there's not even just a small indie game that's about it. Right, like I feel like
that guys, y'all want to make it? I mean, if not, we could take 3 months, and each one of us in 3 months, we've designed together a new game we could sell. If it's not out there,
what part of I don't have time did you not get?
Okay,
if I want to play an investigator game and I'm too lazy to find one, I'll just take Ishanekon World Shapers. The system is flexible enough to cover that.
I mean, I'd run it in Novark, but that's me.
Yeah.
I would run it in mine too, but nobody knows our systems like they know the name Sherlock Holmes.
Right. And Sherlock Holmes might be open to use, but no, that
he's
we're not
public domain.
Yeah, so, he is public domain. So that's what it's like. Wait a minute, actually, we could throw that name into our system description somewhere, but that's another.
Just call it "Where's Sherlock?"
Right? No,
where's Sherlock? You're trying to find Sherlock and figure out what happened.
But look, if there's a game where you play as senior citizens just talking about the past, and there's a game where you play as a group of octopuses that try to escape a lab, then there's a Sherlock Holmes game. Like, there has to be one.
There are so many small micro games out there, I would be surprised.
Yeah. Especially since Sherlock Holmes is public domain.
Right.
I miss a session, you all start making another system. No, I'm not going to make another system.
Blaze is ruining it. No,
I mean, you can do it, and I organized the Forever Day off.
Okay.
All right?
I'm good. I just released a new product. I'm not really wanting to pick up another. I have so many other things going on myself. But maybe we'll talk about it. I don't know. I wanted to not talk about Mastermind yet, because I want to jump to Tactician first. So, when it comes to Tacticians, what systems might be good for those types of players?
Yes.
Oh man, I
right.
have one in my head. I cannot think of it.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 10 seconds. It's on my shelf.
Okay.
I mean, I heard rumors about, battle leaders subclasses for 3.5, but
Right. There
I
actually
only know
was
that
stuff
the
like that.
options
Yeah.
for. Yeah, I only know that like the Purple
13.
Dragon Knight
Mm-hmm.
sucks, and I will never forgive the Dragon game for that.
Right.
Yeah,
13th
basically my favorite
page.
type of character they completely ruined.
Warhammer?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking myself.
Yeah.
The Warhammer role playing is actually really good for that. Jeff said 13th
I'm
age and
afraid.
4E, which I kind of agree with. And honestly, I would say the pathfinding game, because one of the thing I really like in some of those is the amount that you can actually support your other teammates. And kind of like they do encourage tactical thinking. But it kind of like wants everyone to be a tactical thinker at times. So I would kind of like it's hit or miss. That being said, I don't know. I just feel like there's not many games out there besides the Warhammer, besides 4E, besides 13th Age. Like, I do feel like tacticians kind of are in a very interesting place because there are some players out there who don't like being told what to do. But a whole shtick of the tactician is being like, I see the weakness, please go hit that weakness sort of thing. Right? So it's kind of one of those things where I think that it's just been kind of avoided for more than most of it. Is there any other things we can think of? Or should we move on to Mastermind? I have one for Mastermind, so I'm just going to go ahead because we've already brought in the world. So I just want to go ahead and say for Mastermind, my best thing, if you want to have a feeling of playing a Mastermind, play war games, aka the actual war game that is 40K, like, cause that's the best time in tabletop role playing. It's not very common you can do that. Like, you can mimic it generic systems pretty easily. But it again goes into the same sort of issue that tacticians kind of things. What Jeff said in the thing of tacticians borderline on removing agency.
Wait a second. Didn't we talk about masterminds being more of the social political manipulator? How is Warhammer 40K?
Because you're controlling an army.
You're talking about the war game. What?
Yes, I'm talking specifically about the war game. So it's because you're controlling the army.
But that would be tactician, not mastermind, as we defined it earlier.
Has anyone seen the show Leverage?
Yes, I love Leverage. The Leverage roleplay is great.
No.
And I actually brought up Leverage last thing.
Ford is a mastermind. Mm-hmm. That is what playing a mastermind would look like on a role-playing scale.
Sure.
Well, I haven't seen it, so sorry.
Picture you're the guy that knows all of the team members
check it out.
better and as well as they know themselves. So they can tell the team how to interact. They're watching the cameras. They're seeing the security. They can be like, hey, hack that door right now. Anthony, go get that guy. Hey, drop out the building. They're about to be in the room. Switch down to 4th floor, 3rd, and south exit. And you're almost controlling a symphony of the players' actions, coordinating them with what they cannot see, which is each other and the opposition.
Right. It's because
what I do see that, but you run into the problem that as the man also just talked about with the tactician.
Player agency.
If you're really playing to that, you take away the agency of the other players.
That's why I was pointing at the wargaming, because that's you don't have to worry about the other players.
No.
You have that symphony that you're talking about. And that's kind of like where I was at. Was like, you're right that kind of like the role play part of the mastermind, that as we discussed, was doing a lot of the social sort of intelligence sort of trickery. But when you want to boil it down to some things, like what you can actually do in a lot of roleplay, I feel like, besides maybe some really weird cases, maybe some political games would be good for it as well. But just kind of like doing that master symphony of kind of doing a thing. Like I'm picturing tacticians more of like the buffers and whatever, like the subtle like not even subtle manipulation. It's not even manipulation. It's as much as just you're kind of giving them the tactics. You're solving the problem in the instance versus the mastermind who's already had the plan at the beginning.
Yeah, again, you can really most systems are only good for low level masterminding, like tricking at the enemy with illusions, manipulating them socially, the guards. So, oh, the thief went over there. I'm definitely not the thief, and so on.
I do not. I've not actually been able to read masks yet, but I'm definitely going to have to give that out if you're saying that masks handle it really well. So thank you for the suggestion.
I have not heard of masks yet, but that sounds probably more like ballroom masks, right? Political intrigue and stuff.
It's a superhero. It's a superhero game.
Yeah, that kind of okay.
It's
Never mind.
like masks and capes, if you will. It is a roleplay forward superhero game, so it's less crunchy than some of the superhero games out there. As in, it's mostly trying to, Teen Titans-esque sort of thing. I just, it is very much more of like a feel the characters, not the sort of making super comics that are flashy, I guess. I don't know how to word that very well. But yeah, it's a really interesting system. I've been watching a couple of people online, some of my friends, Tales of the Forgotten Trope, have a actual play of it that they stream every Sunday evening for me. You would already be in bed, Blaze, so you'd have to watch it on the YouTubes if you ever had time. Which, I mean, we've discussed multiple times of not having time.
I mean, I want to play Remnant 2, guys. I love the first game. Not unlike all those fake fans that only started playing with the second one.
Wow, gatekeeping his video games. I'm kidding, yeah.
Again, that's a joke. I'm not a gatekeeper. If you're enjoying Remnant 2 without playing the first game, more power to you. Right. So maybe they'll make him a greater third part.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I knew you was joking, and I was working off the joke as well. Other than that, I don't know if there's any other systems to kind of. Timbo says he loves both remnants. Ooh woo.
All right.
Oh yeah. Oh nice. Another.
I will say vampire if the storyteller is doing it right.
Right.
And that's not good mechanics if someone has to be doing it entirely correct.
Right.
But higher level vampires in the blood generation, their will and command kind of goes down through the blood. And so you're kind of playing a mastermind magically just by existing. So there are games where like we've had it to where I've run a character that's a higher level and their will was impacting the party and they had to do willpower checks to even realize, oh, I have to fight my will to follow their lead kind of stuff. And it's interesting, but it doesn't hit that niche entirely. But it's, you see, they had the seed of a good idea.
Fair enough. So, I think there's probably a lot of other social like systems we can talk about that kind of help if you want to play a mastermind or any of these others. But I think we're getting close to the end of the stream anyways, so let's have some final thoughts as I open up Twitch to see if I can find someone who's currently streaming to hand off things to them. So any final thoughts?
Besides, let's all three of us keep coming up with good ideas as long as these multi-million-dollar country and companies keep making horrible ones. You hear what D&D did with like recently, what everyone's all flipping out about?
I have
What
not
did they
been
do now?
I've been not been keeping up the thing with the Dragon game for
man,
purposes.
It makes me feel so good though, and every day I get to see screw ups of WotC, I get to realize I'm not WotC, and so I have hope.
What did they do this time?
They took the brawler, right? The brawler, the guy that's the fighter in the bar that beats people up with a chair, and instead of giving it to monk as a subclass, they said we're going to give it to fighter and say it's all the specialties they have with weapons. Now work on random improvised weapons. And I'm like, so you won't fix the monk? Like, I don't play your thing anymore, but like, you failed the monk, you failed physical combat, you freaking failed unarmed fighters, and Jesus, why are you giving an unarmed subclass to a martial that uses weapons? It's like,
the whole problem that unarmed attacks are melee weapon attacks, but they're not melee weapons. There would be so many cool ideas if we just let them count as weapons.
Okay.
I want to smite somebody by punching him in the face. Let me do that, wizards.
Let's move away from this. It's not part of our topic, and this is not a... I don't like when we get into too much of the shit on the Dragon game, just because that's not what we're here for. We can do that and spend hours on that. Right?
Oh, no. That's why I started it with, let's make good ideas as compared to the light of what we keep seeing.
Right. So, going forward...
I was the buy everyone fan and buy everything fan.
Sure.
We talked for over an hour about good ideas. Now, let me keep those 5 minutes. Where
I'm just saying, I was prepping to end the stream, and I don't want to get into a heavy conversation.
Yeah, that's why it's not something to discuss, right? We just rant a bit until you're done finding the next stream to invade. We're just buying time for you.
Well,
Kyle.
Okay, so does anybody have anything they want to shout out before I send people off? Is the big question here. Anything they want to have some light towards?
My channel is about to be back into uploading content. I'm working on getting the interview from OKSDM to put on our own channel. And tomorrow's my birthday.
Nice. Happy early birthday.
Happy birthday in advance.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll remember to say anything tomorrow, but I might.
Look, it's fine. Normally Twin Tower stuff takes over my birthday every year.
That's fair. What about you, Blaze?
I did not realize that is tomorrow.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I turned 13 the year that happened.
Yeah.
Unlucky number on top of that. I'm so sorry for you. And I hope you still have a great birthday.
I still have the darkest joke ever told by an 8-year-old. My little half-brother looked at me and goes, well, at least you got fireworks. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's rough.
Oh.
Like I said, 8-year-old gave me the darkest humor ever on my birthday. I literally 2 weeks later finally caught on to, oh, that was a joke.
Right.
That's a spicy one.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I'm just, Blaze, got anything you want to say? We good? Do you have anything you want to talk about to show off, Blaze? Blaze, you got anything, Blaze?
Not really. Like just project we're cooking with, like for a GM stay off. But I'm not even sure if that's the official name. I just
yeah. We're still
maybe
working off of it, right? Like
there
still
might be a new streaming project. Let's play in the future.
Huzzah! More things that may come.
Yeah,
more right. Things. Nothing in the about smart characters. Like, ooh. I released a new game on Friday. It's a 13-page solo or group journaling game. I would love people to check it out. In the game, you play as a mad scientist trying to get some validation from their family because it's the first time that they've been invited to a family gathering in a while, and it's like a kid's birthday, so you're like, well, I should make a present, and yeah, it's a fun little game. Check it out. Maybe give it a rating on the itch, because itch.io, like, I have stated that if I get 50 ratings on itch.io, I will actually put more into it and make it a bigger project, and not just like have some expansions for it. Maybe make a variation where it's special, like certain holidays, not a 9/11 one, but besides that, I see. I guess I should probably drop the link of that since I'm talking about it.
Yeah, drop the link. Drop the link. Drop the link.
Oh. Okay. There is the itch. There it is, the current thing. Cool. Besides that, I think it's about time that we get ready to head out. So we got a couple of seconds before we head, but I think that we had a great stream. This was really fun.
Yeah, so it was fun.
You all have
especially the end.
Especially the end, where we started talking about 9/11 and birthdays. Oh, God, that
focus on the birthday part.
Yeah, focus on the birthday. Be positive. You are all wonderful people. You all deserve so much happiness. See you next time. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody. See you next time.